Hi, I'm Dania Hibbert, and this is my older adult presentation. My presentation, I interviewed my Aunt Valerie Hibbert. Here are some experiences from her developmental stage. Valerie Hibbert is the oldest of three children. She has two younger brothers. She grew up in the countryside of Jamaica. Her mother, Rita Livingston, worked three jobs so the family could be financially stable, but this caused her to not be around a lot. Valerie's father was not part of her life growing up. Valerie took on the mother role for her siblings growing up, while their mother worked to give them the best life she could. When Valerie was 10 years old, her mother moved to the United States of America to build a future for her kids to live out the American dream. During this time, the kids stayed with their aunt in Jamaica. They lived at their aunt's house for 2 years. During this time, Valerie was a babysitter for her siblings and cousins, as well as a housekeeper for her aunt. Valerie moved to the United States around the age of 12 years old. She faced racism and harassment for being African American and having a Jamaican accent. She lived in a low-income area. She moved out around the age of 16 and lived on her own. She went to college and received a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. Afterwards, she went to law school at Temple University. Valerie Hibbert is an injury and immigration lawyer. She is currently 55 years old, and she does not have kids or a husband because she wanted to focus on her career and gain the life she dreamed of with no stress. Difficult challenges and accomplishments. Valerie stated that pursuing a higher level of education was a struggle for her because she did not have support emotionally or financially. She had to work a full-time job while also doing school full-time. This caused her to limit her interactions with others so she could keep up with her grades and be able to pay bills for school and living, as well as provide the basic necessities for herself. She also did not have many relationships or friendships because she did not want distractions from her goal. She had a strained relationship with her mother. These factors caused her to experience periods of depression. Valerie was able to obtain a law degree 1.5 years earlier than expected. The psychosocial stage that I focused on with Valerie was intimacy versus isolation. Intimacy versus isolation is when Erickson explains that when people have intimate connections with others, it gives them a higher quality of life, and when they are more isolated, they have a lower quality of life. Factors and events that facilitated the psychosocial crisis development: lack of parental figures in her life, lack of stable relationships and connection, hyper-focused on assets and accolades, being caretaker most of her childhood, trying to break the stereotype of people of color and foreigners, having to deal with racism and harassment, and dealing with a low economic status. Because she had a lack of parental figures in her life, she did not know how to gain or maintain connections with others. She was hyper focused on assets and accolades. So she was not trying to earn intimate connections. In actuality, she was avoiding doing that so she can focus on her academics and gaining money. During her period of interactions during school and job positions, she faced being stereotyped for her color and her accent, which pushed her to be more avoidant towards others because she was fearful of the treatment she would receive from others and did not want to focus on those conflicts and rather try to reach her accomplishments of earning a degree. And because of her low economic status, she was also treated unfairly. Factors that inhibited resolution of psychosocial crisis of developmental stage. One was her race. Valerie expressed her struggles of not being treated equally and inferior due to her being a person of color, causing her to keep herself isolated. She explained that when she moved to the USA, she lived in a primary white area and dealt with racial slurs and unequal treatment. She further explains that when she started living on her own, she moved to a more diverse area. When she lived in a diverse area, she stated that she struggled even more. Valerie was not accepted by people of color entirely because of how she grew up. Her race caused her not to be accepted by the white people because they had a stereotype of black people being mean, rude, less than. But she grew up around these people, so she picked up some of their behaviors and ideologies. So when she was living in the more diverse area, the people of color did not fully accept her because of the way she behaved. They considered it white and the way she thought. So no matter what group she was in, she never fit. And that's what helped strain her relationship to make connections with others because she was fearful of not fitting in. Another factor is gender. Being a female as well as a person of color, it made it hard for her to be respected. Since individuals were always looking at her physical attributes, she dedicated her time achieving materialistic objects and accolades to help herself gain respect. This caused her to struggle with people's intentions and to establish connections with others. Valerie felt as though she needed a law degree to have the highest position job, to have the most expensive objects, assets in her life to gain respect because nobody would give her a chance because she was a black female. And that's why she isolated herself till she could gain those things so she could gain that respect and not be affected by the negativity that was being brought towards her by others. She also dealt with oppression because of her race and gender. This caused her to feel devalued and deprived of privileges. Therefore, she isolated herself because she lacked the ability to form relationships to her past unstable ones. She struggled with trusting others. In addition, she wanted to focus on herself and felt as though relationships were a distraction from her goals of gaining a higher education, assets that she believed would help her status in society. Valerie's actions throughout her young adulthood displayed the flight response because she was avoiding potential stressful interactions and walking away from issues. One of the annotated bibliographies I did related to this interview. The journal Intimacy versus Isolation, a qualitative study of sexual practices among sexually active HIV-infected patients in HIV care in Brazil, Thailand, and Zambia, analyzes intimate relationships for individuals with HIV and compare the results to Erickson's theory of development of intimacy versus isolation. Within Erickson's theory, he suggested that intimacy is a goal for individuals so they can gain meaningful relationships and care, whereas avoiding intimacy creates isolation and fear, which in turn negatively affects personal development. However, the study conducted with HIV individuals displayed the opposite result, because engaging in an intimate relationship caused fear also, and was not the goal for these individuals. So, in this study with HIV patients, they did not fit Erickson's theory, since the patients had fear having intimate relationships and rather have isolated themselves because they didn't have to deal with the stress of letting a partner know that they have HIV, or talking about HIV, or putting on condoms. And I feel like this relates to Valerie because she also didn't want to have intimate relationships because it could have been a negative factor impacting her goals to earning a degree and getting a higher position in jobs, because she would be focused on a social life and maintaining relationships. Multi-system lenses would be Valerie's family dynamic hindered her by not allowing her to learn how to establish stable and healthy relationships, as well as interacting with others. Social forces, society both hindered and helped Valerie's opportunity in life and negatively affected her perspective on herself and maintaining relationships. However, it gave her a large amount of motivation to accomplish goals that she set for herself. Freud's common defense mechanism. This theory relates to my interviewee because of the concept of withdrawal. As stated in Rogers' text, withdrawal is retreating into solitude to avoid painful emotions and situations. While interviewing Valerie, she stated that I isolate myself to avoid distractions from my goal and to not have to deal with extra stress that came with relationships and others. Theory limitations. Although Valerie is content with her life and is proud of the goals she has accomplished, her willingness in deciding to isolate herself ruined her opportunity to experience building and maintaining relationships. This is true because now she is not young enough to have her own kids. She feels as though she passed her dating period and finds difficulties to make genuine friends. Now she wishes she made more of an effort to live a balanced life, because as she reflects, she feels as though she missed out on a larger part of life. If Valerie found a way to balance interacting with others and gaining intimate relationship with others, as well as accomplishing her goals and finding a way to not have them conflict, she would have been able to pass this developmental stage and not struggle here for a long period of time if she maintained balance between her accomplishments and relationships, but that was hindered since she chose one over the other.